It's going to be a lot of talk if we lose this game.
Do you have is there a name on the group chat?
The Avengers.
Avengers?
Yeah.
Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown. I am so excited to talk to you about a new documentary on Netflix called Court of Gold.
Message is simple. Win.
It's in my blood, I'm a champion.
It blew me away. 6 episodes of the most amazing behind-the-scenes footage you're ever going to see in a documentary like this, following 4 teams in the basketball pool of the Olympics in 2024.
Curry, triple, he sticks it!
I got an interview with the director, and I got to ask him some really interesting questions about how they put this thing together and how they got such incredible footage, of which you're going to want to see all 6 episodes. I know I could not put it down once I started. So here's the interview. Check it out. Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown. I am honored to have the director of the latest Netflix documentary called Court of Gold, Jake Rogal. Thank you so much for being part of the show and giving us some special insights behind the scenes of what is, I got to tell you right off the bat, is a riveting documentary that you created.
Thank you. I really appreciate the intro and the kind words, and congratulations on all you have going on, man. I'm psyched for you.
Hey, well, my pleasure to have you here, and let's get into this because I'm kind of curious. If you were going to write a movie about the background behind the scenes of the Olympic basketball from 2024 in Paris, everything that you got, every footage would have been like pre-scripted, written, even down to like how you filmed it with the different angles and the slow-mo and everything like that. Did you have the sense that you were going to be able to get this? Because it's uncanny how it's almost like exactly how you would want it in a Hollywood movie.
No, definitely not the way it unfolded. You try to put yourself in the best position to capture the most compelling stories by picking the right teams and following the right players. And so you have a sense of like, okay, there is like a floor to this. And the floor is like at the minimum, the US blows everybody out and you get cool access to the biggest stars. For it to unfold the way that it did, does feel like a Hollywood movie. It does feel scripted. You know, you understand when people say sports are rigged because it's like so perfect. You're like, how could that have actually happened? But it did.
Curry back from Durant. Working on Yabusele. Curry draws the double. Booker on the attack. Kick. Curry again. You already know. Come on. Steph Curry ready for his Olympic moment.
What'd he say? What they gonna say now? What they gonna say now about Steph Curry?
So no idea. Didn't have any idea it was going to unfold in the way that it did, but you have kind of an idea that it'll be compelling in one way or another.
Well, I'm really excited for people who are watching this to actually watch the doc itself because, again, it's rare to get that kind of behind-the-scenes footage. I mean, we're talking about inner thoughts, monologues of the players, and I'm wondering, so many of them, again, if you were going to write this, you would say player A is going to give you the most intimate detail of how they're feeling about this game coming up or what happened in the game itself. So I'm kind of curious. I feel like, is there a method to how you did these interviews to get that out of your interviewee?
Being captain for national team of Serbia, it's another level of pressure. I just try to lead by example. We know how much team matters and team style and team confidence is important.
I think we wanted to give people a feeling of authenticity. And so the conversations we're having before we do the interviews is like, whatever you're feeling or you're saying is going to make it. We're not going to make it something that it isn't. And I think people are afraid that when they give you some sort of access to themselves, you're going to take it and make it what you think it should be, rather than portray what's actually happening or what they're actually saying, which is what we did and what we have tried to do. So I just try to stress that even though I'm a stranger, I want to be as authentic as possible. And I want this piece to be as authentic as possible. And the best way to do that is for you to be as honest as you possibly can. And whatever you say will get in this thing. And I think just letting people know that right off the bat, like, I'm not here to dig up, horrible things about you. I'm here to capture a moment in your life that's really cool. The Olympics are special. Your family's going to watch this in 20 years when you have grandkids and see you at the Olympics. Like, this is something you want to be part of. It's a positive thing. So I think just letting people know they're in good hands and this is a cool opportunity and being authentic yourself, I think, gets the best out of these interviews.
I've done a bunch of this kind of footage as well. And I know that while I'm behind the camera filming, in the moment, I even realized, oh, this is going to edit beautifully. This is going to be a great moment. So I'm kind of curious, did you have that feeling a couple different times, perhaps while you were filming, this, which would have taken weeks to film? Did you have that moment at all, or a few times while this is going on?
Yeah. I had personal moments with that, sitting in the chair talking to some of these guys. But what I do remember is we had like each team had a field team assigned to them, so they were seeing the same faces every day. And so the French team had a French crew with them, and there's 2 French camera guys, and they would go into the locker room and capture what the French team was doing. And I remember their faces coming out of the locker room at halftime of the first France-Germany game.
On veut quoi? Pourquoi on est là? On veut quoi? On veut la médaille d'or. Parce qu'on ne sait pas ce qu'on veut. On se fait démonter. Personne ne peut ouvrir. Personne ne peut se marquer. On se prend des écrans dans la gueule tout le temps. Ils dinaguent tout. Personne ne répond.
And they were the biggest smiles I've ever seen. They were hugging each other, shaking each other. And I was like, what happened? And they told me about, Nico Batum gave a really impassioned speech that they covered and they felt it. And I'll never forget their faces coming out of that. And I thought, like, I can't wait to see the footage because of their reactions. And the footage was great. And it's one of the highlights of the show. So I remember the way the crew was impacted by certain moments they were close to.
Oui, on veut la médaille d'or aux champions olympiques. Mon cul, ouais. On s'est fait défoncer l'année dernière. Ça n'a rien changé cette année. On fait la même chose cette année. Ils sont en train de rigoler face à nous.
I mean, and that is a great moment as well. And you're kind of sitting there and like thinking to yourself, how did they get this? And which I guess leads me to my next question would be, how often, or did it happen at all, that they were like, get the hell out of here, we don't want the cameras involved in any of this stuff? Or did they become a fly on the wall where they just sort of pretended it wasn't there? They ignored it at some point?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The coaches had ultimate say. So what the Olympics said is, we will give you the right credentials to be everywhere you need to be. You have to establish the rapport with the teams to make them trust you and let you into certain moments. So we said to each coach right off the bat, kick us out. What if you say don't go in there, we won't go in there. It's completely your call. We respect you have a tournament to win, and we will try to stay out of your way. So most coaches let us stay in there the whole time. Coach Pesic was the most finicky, and he was the most weary of what we were doing. So he kicked us out the most. But I would say after the game, he would always come back and say, hey, here's why, it wasn't you or anything like that. So no, it was like establishing rapport, letting them know they can trust us and that we understand that we are, at the bottom of a long list of things they have to do, and we don't want to get in the way. So I think when you come at them with respect and making sure they know they have control, which they really do, we're not just saying that, they are more willing to be patient with you. And we were in those locker rooms pretty much the entire time.
I mean, there's a hilarious moment where you included where you see Coach Pesic like sort of tell you to get out right to the camera, maybe even swore at you. I can't remember now with that diagram, something on the thing. And that was obviously my ears perked up, because it's not always easy to see what they're writing on the board. Everyone wants to hide that and keep that secret. So that was hilarious that A, we got to see it, and B, the coach, kicked you out. And I guess that was a conscious decision. Look, we got to keep at least one of these moments in the actual doc, right?
Yeah, you want, like, again, always coming back to authenticity. Like, you want people to know what it was like. And like getting kicked out of a locker room, most people haven't been kicked out of a locker room. So like, you want to see what that feels like? Here you go. It's giving people access moments that they're curious about what it feels like, and being true to those moments and not showing something that didn't happen or showing it in a different way. It's like letting that play long and just being like, here's a minute in the locker room, and just letting it. It's a cool way to see things. Like, as a fan of docs, when I'm watching something, I want to feel like I'm seeing what's happening and not being told by someone what's happening. And I think that's a good sort of like place to ground yourself in when you're trying to cover this stuff. So like, yeah, that moment, it was fun to see what it's like to get kicked out of a locker room. Like, when we're watching that footage, it's interesting. So it was an easy thing to include.
Well, the other thing is hopefully a lot of coaches are going to watch this, because it's sort of a masterclass on how to conduct your pre, mid, and post game, talks to your team.
Use their energy against them and stay together. All right. Number 2 is, they give us a bad call, we ain't reacting to it. We just keep going.
Pas prévoir, parce que c'est pas prévisible, parce que nous-mêmes, on sait pas jusqu'où on va monter. On va être irrésistible. Et irrésistible, on va leur sauter à la gueule.
And it seems like, yes, you ran the gamut from every different kind of coach and different kind of language. And a lot of these are really dramatic. And obviously there's angles and there's music and there's things like that can enhance that. But I was kind of curious, while you're there behind the camera, was it palpable? Could you feel some of those speeches like riling them up and getting them to the emotional pitch that they wanted them to?
Yeah, absolutely. And what these coaches all had was an uncanny ability to control the intensity of emotion. So when they didn't want their players to like peak with adrenaline, they were able to cut a speech off right before you felt like you were about to hit that moment of like, oh my God, I could run through a wall right now. They would stop it. Or if they wanted their players to get all the way there, they would lay it on full and get them pumped up and, rah-rahing and running out there. So their ability to control the emotional gauge was something that was like a must. And each coach had the ability to do that. And their understanding of the emotion at a certain time was like, it's psychiatry, and they all have that ability.
I mean, come on. There must have been like a coach that was better than everybody else at doing that, wouldn't you say?
No, because you can't take a coach's approach and apply it to a different set of players than the ones he's talking to, because every coaching approach is catered to the group that they're speaking to. So like if you took Steve Kerr's style and put it to the French guys, I don't know if there would be a connection there. Or if you took Coach Calais' style and put it to Serbian guys, same thing. These coaches know their guys so well that everything is catered towards that group of guys. So like it felt like it was effective. All these teams did pretty well in the Olympics, so it felt like it was effective for each coach. So like it really like it's actually in a weird way hard to compare the coaches because the teams were very different. For sure. And that's what I was doing. I mean, I'm studying them, right, and watching this footage. And again, you don't get to see this normally. And I'm just curious, did you feel like there was maybe a sense of style rooted in the culture and the country they were each from that influenced the way they communicated? Yes. I'm not familiar enough with the countries to like know how that was coming off, but you'd see it in certain ways. Like the Serbian team was very, very serious because Coach Pesic set a really serious tone. And like, there wasn't a lot of joking around in that team. I think the French team, they felt the pressure of the country and the home country. So I think they were a little more serious and they didn't really do much as far as like going out and around Paris because of all the eyes on them. The U.S. team, it's mega superstars, and these guys are living like superstars. And so you're seeing that.
Y'all better stand down. I'm the truth.
The truth. He's saying the truth.
The Canadian team, similar to the American teams, but I think there are cultural elements to each one of these teams, of course. It's just hard to like point to specific things because like I've spent a lot of time in Serbia or in France, so it's like it's hard to see how that translates. Fair enough. And, when you have a team with Jokic on it, no matter how serious it might feel around the coaching staff, I have a feeling that it's probably they're having fun somewhere else, somewhere around there. Yeah. And, it was truly, to be able to see that and then juxtapose that was really great. I do feel like there might have been a little bit more of, if you added up all the minutes of which locker rooms you got to see most of, it felt like maybe the United States had less focus. And I'm kind of curious if that was maybe because, you're trying to develop more of the drama of the situation as we're building toward, obviously the Team USA, which is this juggernaut of a team. So was that part of what in mind in terms of how you're structuring the editing process of the final doc? Yeah, no, it's a great question. As far as like time spent in Team USA locker room, Coach Kerr did a lot of his stuff either at the hotel, which we have a bunch of meetings at the hotel, or like on the court. He didn't do a ton of like in locker room coaching. I think we have one moment in there where he's doing it, but that was very, very, very rare. His style is much more, let's let the players be themselves in the locker room, listen to music, be in their own worlds and get themselves ready. And I'll tell them what they need to know before we get to the arena or on the court after. So that wasn't like a conscious thing. That was more just like what was happening. And then as far as which team got the most airtime in the doc, it was what's the most interesting thing in at this point in the Olympics. And like sometimes France has had more interesting things going on. And so we put that there. It's like when you're watching an episode, just because Team USA is in it doesn't make the episode good. They have to be doing something that is worth showing people. So it was really like, of course you want to get your superstars in there, but it really was just let's put the best stuff in here to try to make it move so that people can actually get through all 6 episodes. Right. And it sounded like, you had no problem getting anybody you wanted to talk to the cameras. Yeah, I think it's an appealing pitch to people. It's a cool moment in their lives. It's going to be a time capsule. Most of the guys we talked to did really well. They have a global following. There's not a ton of controversy in it. It's an easy thing. And also like we can make a little go a long way. So the pitch is like, can I get a half hour and I won't bother you anymore? And you'll have something really cool for your family to watch. And it's like that usually gets people to listen. Well, to give people a sense of this, how varied you got in terms of interviewees, Carmelo Anthony's in this.
These are the things that not everybody can do. We're dealing with greatness here. Like we always feel like we got a chance when you're dealing with greatness.
And I think he might have the best quote of all, where he said, "These are the things that not everybody can do." we're dealing with greatness. And it kind of struck me because, again, you're getting these quotes that you would write if you were a screenwriter and needing, we need something from somebody to say that really reflects on the moment.
Yeah.
How easy was it to get Melo to be able to, I mean, was that just off the cuff remarks that he's making?
He is one of the smartest people I've ever interviewed. He is charismatic. He understands emotional intelligence. He speaks with confidence. It's such, I didn't even do the interview. Ross Hawker, one of our editors, actually did, but Carmelo is such an amazing guy. And he's been in these spots. I mean, he played for 20 years, so he's seen everything there is to see on the court. So he can relate to almost any situation you talk to him about. So he's so valuable because, like, you could give him a really obscure basketball situation, whether it's international or at the NBA, and he's either done it himself or seen it, so he can speak on it. His breadth of knowledge about the sport and about the people involved and the feelings involved is amazing. So yeah, no, that was him just completely doing his thing.
I mean, the humanizing of these people as well is another thing that's important. That it could just be a natural byproduct of just getting footage of you had so much access. And I just wanted to ask you about, like, there's a hilarious moment because it's funny as well, where you're seeing the USA coaches sitting on steps and they're having a beer after like the most intense semifinal game imaginable. Yeah. And they look over their shoulder and there's like LeBron like sitting by himself on the steps, you know, minding his own business, and they offer him like a drink. That can't possibly be a real organic moment, can it?
No, it really was real and organic. Nothing you see in this entire thing is fabricated. And I mean that with everything in me. There's never a time where we said do something. It was always, let's capture what's happening. And I think people are surprised to see these moments of superstars feeling like normal people, because they live these lives that you see online or on TV. And it's like all the glitz and all the glamour. And like, you don't see them being normal people. So like, if we were all hanging out on the steps and one guy was by himself, you wouldn't think twice about it because we feel like normal people. But so are these guys. They just, you know, they're just superstars. So when there's comfort there with the crews, they can really be themselves. And that, yeah, LeBron was just out there hanging out by himself and saw the coaches and had a beer. So that was authentic and that was real, as is everything you'll see in the doc.
Absolutely. Well, you've had some experience now. The Last Dance is one other documentary you've done. So there's a lot of basketball sort of swirling in what you've done so far. And I'm kind of curious what your connection personally is to basketball. Did you play? Did you coach? Did you have any kind of, advanced level, interactions with
Yeah. I played in middle school. It was terrible. I played hockey and lacrosse growing up. Those were my sports. But no, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and my parents, I grew up on Pitt Pitt University's campus. And my dad and I would go to Pitt basketball games all the time. He had season tickets. We'd go to the Peterson Event Center, and I watched Carmelo play at Syracuse, and I would watch all these guys come through. So I always loved college basketball, Pitt basketball being my team. And then my dad took me to see LeBron play in high school. He was playing at the Civic Arena where the Penguins used to play. And I watched him play in high school. And then the next year, my dad took me to a Cavs game. We drove up to Cleveland and watched him play in the NBA. So I was in high school. I saw a kid in high school play, and then I saw him in the NBA the next year. And it was just, my brain kind of exploded seeing that was possible. So the NBA is a weird sport for me because I don't have a team. I watch it because I love sports and I like seeing good games and I like seeing good players and good coaching and all that. I'm a sports fanatic, Pittsburgh teams being my teams. So my connection to basketball really goes through Pitt basketball and college basketball with my dad.
Wow. I mean, I go back to Sean Miller Pitt teams, which is way before you. But,
no, I'm familiar though.
Yeah, and he was actually one of my bosses when I was a manager at Wisconsin.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I used to play one-on-one with Sean Miller every day after practice. And
yeah, my teams were like Brandon Knight and Julius Page and Dwan Blair, and that was my era of Pitt basketball.
Yeah, and that's funny because it just came up on social media the other day where Charles Smith is breaking the backboard on a pass from Sean Miller and with Pitt.
Yeah.
It's like lots of memories. Now, interestingly enough, when you compare like these two docs, obviously with The Last Dance, you weren't filming anything, right? You were filming Talking Heads, but you certainly you had to take whatever you found in that amazing, found footage. So how is that different in terms of that versus, like what you can do here where you're controlling cameras and you're controlling the footage?
Yeah, they're two different jobs, but The Last Dance was really founded in nostalgia and trying to recreate what people remember about that time and how they felt. Whereas this one was capturing what's actually happening and looking forward as to what potentially could happen in the NBA and in basketball globally. So I think covering an event through a verite element is challenging because you have less control over what's going on. You're just capturing and things are unfolding and you don't know if you're covering the right thing or not. The Last Dance, we'd be a little more meticulous in building it because it already happened. So we could kind of like strategically plan how to tell that story, knowing the ending. This one, you're trying to get it as it's happening, not knowing where it's going to go. And you're hoping you're making the right guesses. Sometimes you are and sometimes you aren't. But it's much more of a guessing game than an archival doc, which is like, we know what the story is. How do we tell it in a way that's compelling and accurate?
Well, if you're trying to make a decision, if you want to watch this and you've seen The Last Dance, just know that you'll get a lot of that same style of in the interviews, the same kind of forthright stuff inside their minds in a way that again, it's rare to get that out of interviewees. I've done this a lot, and a lot of times they don't want to talk, or they kind of give you the bare essentials. And so again, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that like you're going to get insights that you don't normally hear. And speaking of hearing, as a guy who's been snake bit with sound all these years and trying to film on courts and whatnot, I know it's a bit wonky, but I thought maybe I just ask you, I don't know if all these people were mic'd a lot of the time. And if not, how are you getting such pristine sound?
So in the practices, we would mic the coaches, and often the players' voices will be picked up by their lav mics. During games, we asked coaches every game to mic them up. It was up to them. Some games they said, yeah, I'm fine today. Some days they said, leave me alone. But we really relied on those lav mics. And then in the locker rooms, we had a boom in there, but it was like low and they didn't really see it. So audio was the hardest part of this show by far. We subtitle a lot of things because we're in loud arenas and you can't hear a lot. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of miking opportunities because FIBA doesn't allow players to be mic'd. So a lot of it was, can we mic coaches and hope they pick some sound up, things like that. Hopefully FIBA eventually down the road lets us mic up players, but not for this one.
Okay, fascinating. Because again, and I bring it up because you get some of these moments, and even if it's subtitled, you can still hear it, and it's pretty clean. I mean, I'm thinking of one. You catch Coach Kerr. I suppose he was mic'd, kind of muttering to himself.
Fucking Steph Curry, Jesus Christ.
Another thing that's nice about Netflix, I wonder how you feel, is that you don't need to bleep anything, and you can have just the raw language. Was that freeing for you?
Yeah, it's freeing, and I also think like, when you and I leave this conversation and you're talking to a friend, you'll probably say some swear words when you talk to them. It's like people swear. That's how life works. And I think the more you can show people just normalcy, the more entertaining it is, and the more they'll believe you're showing them authentic things. Because like if we had a basketball doc where people weren't swearing, you'd be like, I know that's not how it works. So why not let people see it in its real capacity,
Well, as we wrap this up, if you can give us maybe sort of the one image, the one quick snippet of video or something that you'd want to share with people that would, you think is so important for them to kind of get hooked into this 6-part documentary. What do you think that might be for the whole thing?
I think you have to point to the moment when it's going to sound cliche and obvious, when Steph hits his threes to clinch the gold medal. And the reason being, it emphasizes the globality of the sport and of the series. When he hits that shot, yes, it seals the gold medal for Team USA. There are people from France on their feet clapping. And that's not because they're happy their team lost, but they're in awe of something great unfolding in front of their eyes. And I think this series in particular emphasizes the globality of the sport, which is, I think, no question, the most global American sport you could possibly have, because it touches so many parts of the globe. And I think that moment is a microcosm of the globality of the game, when people can cheer for someone else's country because a moment in the game happens. I just think it's cool to see all that.
Well, Jake, I think it was really cool that you can come on here and share some of these insights. I cannot wait for everybody to check out this documentary and check it out on Netflix when it comes out. I really appreciate all the kind words. It's great talking to you. You got it. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Jake? I'm in.